Aloha and good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, September 25th, 2025. The time is 11:06 a.m. I call the Committee on Government Efficiency and Community Services meeting to order. I'd like to welcome committee members Vice Chair Wire, as well as Councilmember Nishimoto. Councilmember Cordero is on her way and will be joining us shortly. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute, Section 92-3.7, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, in person in the council chamber and remotely. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time, as may be necessary, will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. All persons who have registered to testify in person will be called upon first. When your name is called, please come up to the testifier podium and state your name for the record. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. After the in-person testimony is concluded, I'll proceed to remote testimony via video conference or phone. When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please press *6 when prompted. Hawaii Revised Statute, Section 92-3.7 requires that all votes at a remote meeting be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I'll first call for objections, and if there are any, I'll call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described in the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. And we'll begin with agenda item number 1. This is an informational briefing on the implementation of the H&L Build Permitting Platform. Members of the Department of Planning and Permitting will be providing us with a brief presentation. We've distributed a copy of the presentation in hard copy form, and it's also available online as Departmental Communication 740. We have with us the mayor, 15th mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, Rick Blangiardi. We also have the managing director, deputy managing director, and chief of staff, and the director of the Department of Permitting and Planning, as well as their deputy director. Mayor, you want to start?
Good morning, Committee Chair Dos Santos Tam. Thank you, council members. I asked to go first this morning because I'm very passionate on this subject. You know, from day one in office, fixing DPP has been a top priority. We're well known for saying we wanted to take on the wicked problems. There was nothing probably facing the city or us as an administration and team as far as a challenge than DPP. In fact, the prior mayor told Managing Director Formby and I, you can't fix it. You might as well just implode the whole thing. It's impossible. And even then, in coming into office, we looked at an audit that the city had done the year before, which talked about for decades, the lack of investment in people, technology, et cetera, et cetera. This was a daunting task in and of itself, and if we were to do nothing else than just try to take on DPP, much less all the other things that we faced, it would be an incredible challenge. But nonetheless, we have. And that's why I asked to speak before Don Takeuchi Upuna gets up here, director, because of great respect for the effort. So let me just give some context to this. First of all, I came out of a technology-driven business for 40 years plus. I went through every iteration here in Hawaii and elsewhere from the time when satellite technology wasn't available to making that available to everything one could do in control rooms, et cetera. And along the way, throughout the course of that time and the leadership roles I had, the installation of technology, okay, never easy. Very difficult, in fact. The transition is, you just got to go through a whole lot. And learning the equipment, the integration, getting people on board, et cetera. And those were much smaller settings and far less complex, candidly, than anything the DPP represents. We have been in full discovery on where we wanted to go. And to replace a system like Posse that was done in 1998, okay, to today's software system and working with a company like Spiridion was a huge leap for us. It took a lot of time to understand the problems we were facing, develop the right solution, and then determine who would be best. And then on top of that, the daunting task of all of that data having to be integrated. We wanted it to go off smoother than it has. There's no question. We expected that. And we've had some bumps. That was not unexpected. So recently, I've been on the phone with the CEO, Ali Hassan, from Spiridion, recognizing full well and admitting their contributions to the difficulties we face. They have now been here with a team of people. We're in a situation called hypercare. Normally that hypercare model, and I don't know if Don's going to talk about it, has a limited time frame. They've agreed because of the things that they did that we can stay in hypercare for as long as we need. In fact, they've also offered unprecedented intensive training for selected people to help us get over this. Look, this state is well known, and I remember from my days at Hawaii News Now, various software systems that the state tried to implement and weren't able to do at a cost of a lot of money, okay? Taking this on was an incredible task, but we recognize how important, how pivotal it is, okay, for economic recovery, for everything that we're doing with housing, everything that's gonna happen along the way with TOD, et cetera. And so that said, we've had a couple of bumps in the road. We expected that. We are about the business of fixing that. Nobody's denying anything, but we need that kind of understanding that this is a transition period right now, and we need your support. Quite honestly, I was very disappointed to read your comments or hear your comments on the news last night, because if you were on our side of the fence, you would see the degree of difficulty this represents and how far we've come and how certain we are about the road ahead and what we're going to get done, which is unprecedented. You never would have said what you said. Okay, we need your support to understand we're doing something that other people never even tried to do, and this goes back decades, not just the prior administration. That's how difficult this is, and that's how critical it is to the future of this city, and we take that most seriously. And I've got this CEO on record of working with us and promising to get us past the finish line. So there is a path forward, and we need you to understand the degree of difficulty of this because it's exceptional, along the lines of everything else. So I just want to be in here before Don says anything. I have complete confidence in the leadership of the department. You know, it's not just about buying hardware. It's not just about buying software. You have to bring a workforce along too. And this is a big leap. Posse was installed in 1998, okay? That was 9 years before, I don't have my iPhone, 9 years before the iPhone even showed up in 2007 with Steve Jobs, and actually 10 years before anybody in Hawaii was really adapting to it, and we took the lead of it back at Hawaii News Now. I've been involved in the adaptation and adoption of technology for a long time. What we're doing here is not insignificant, okay? So that change from a 1998 software system, 98, into today's world and what this represents for the future and bringing a workforce along with it is a Herculean effort. It deserves respect. It deserves patience. It deserves people not just jumping on us anytime that they feel like they've got a good story to print because we're failing maybe perhaps while we're trying really hard to succeed in the confidence that we will succeed. And I wouldn't even call it failure. In fact, I didn't bring in my iPhone. The ironic thing was I got this week, 2 days ago, Tuesday, a voicemail from Chris Ikumu Kid, who's one of the key solar players, praising Don, just said, you know, you deserve to have a phone call like this. So that story last night really bothered me, which is why I came in here. And I'm hoping that you'll give her the attention that she deserves on the task that we're taking on. So we're very passionate about this. I'd like to think, and I've said it oftentimes, we're all on the same team. This is a tough thing. This is really important for this city. And I would tell you, we've put an incredible amount of time and effort in this, and a lot of thought too. So we're gonna be fine. I'm confident we're gonna be there. You need to believe in that. You need to trust in what we're doing, okay? And if anybody has any issues, and that includes the press in the room, come see us privately. We've offered total transparency in everything we're doing. We're not looking to duck. We're not looking to make excuses. We're here to solve problems, and this is a top problem for us. So I just want to set the stage, okay? Could say a lot more, but for the sake of time, I hope that you get where I'm coming from on this one. All right? Thank you. Any questions of me?
Any questions for the mayor? Okay. Councilmember Wire.
Not so much a question, but really just wanted to mahalo you, Mayor, for the work that you're doing. And I know the community sees that and the work of the folks you put in DPP. I mean, I see the engagement in our community every day. I know they're working overtime. And also I have a lot of respect for committee chair because I think we're oftentimes just digesting and hearing from the community just like you, right? And so just wanted to be clear that from my position, I have a lot of respect for everyone in this room.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I really do think we're going to accomplish a lot. And I think there's a lot of leadership to go around in this room. And so
Thank you, Councilman Wire. Look, I said the state of the city at the start of this year, we shifted from planning to execution. We're now in execution on a number of fronts, okay? On a number of fronts. And any one of them categorically could have been, as I said earlier, about DPP in and of itself would have been the success of an administration. We chose to take on a number of wicked problems. So I appreciate that understanding. And I would tell you this one other thing. We know the solar industry well. I called Rocky Moe this morning. We have been everywhere and any time that they've asked us, we've been totally transparent with that industry, recognizing that they represent about 60% of the permit applications. We know how vital it is. We understand also that the federal legislation has put a time clock on them that's caused a lot of anxiety. It's just unfortunate that we're going through this incredible integration after years at the same time. We couldn't have predicted either one of those. So we're sensitive to that, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that they can get their business handled.
thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Members, any other questions for the mayor?
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none, thank you. All right, I see the director here.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. We appreciate this opportunity to provide a status on H&L build. Following the August 4th go live, which is a snapshot in time within this epic journey that began years ago and continues today. To begin, the overarching goals of H&L build are to improve efficiency, consistency, and customer service by enhancing data management, communications with all stakeholders, and streamlining business processes through digital integration and automation. H&L Build is a significant and major overhaul of the city's permitting software system. It is tough enough to provide DPP's various and important services to the public, but concurrently, we are executing replacement of the 28-year-old posse with an entirely new system. This is a once in a nearly 30-year project which will serve the public for years to come. The enormity and importance of this project and getting it right is of highest concern and priority to DPP and the city's administration. DPP has been diligent in its efforts from day one and continues to do so now and through full implementation. What is the purpose of H&L Build and why does it matter? So there's three basic reasons why we have H&L Build. First, the comprehensive cloud-based platform. We're talking about infrastructure. Posse is 28 years old, supported by an outdated on-premise platform. It is highly configured Band-Aid after Band-Aid and no longer supportable. Basically, we are preempting system failure with the H&L Build replacement. An on-premise platform is what H&L Build is, and it means we're managing our own physical hardware, software. On-premise platform means we're managing our own physical hardware, storage, and servers, but with a cloud-based solution like H&L Build, we are basically renting these resources from third-party providers, typically on a pay-as-you-go basis. The application storage and servers are over the internet and accessed on demand from remote data centers. This is industry standard. This allows for greater flexibility, cost savings, and the ability to access services from anywhere with an internet connection. Next, streamline, integrate, and expedite processes. The permitting process is complex, and that includes various reviews, agencies, requirements, et cetera. The system is designed to integrate agencies and reviews and fill gaps from application submittal all the way through close of inspections. And not just for building permits, but for the full range of permits and approvals that DPP offers. It also ensures that many of the requirements for applications are loaded upfront. Thirdly, improve transparency and customer service. H&L Build's public portal gives users a view into review permit status and the overall process for the 60 permit and approvals administered by DPP, as well as important property information to better inform. We now have an integrated payment system and overall financial system that accounts for all payments, revenues, etc. What is the vendor selection process? So talking about this journey, the vendor selection process has been a diligent, iterative, and comprehensive process beginning from the idea of a new system to H&L Build. So even before the December 2022, the yellow circle, as Mayor had spoken of, this is about fixing DPP, including its basic infrastructure. There were many discussions with staff prior to 2022 about the issues with the system and what the potential solutions were. Those ideas evolved into an in-house tech tiger team in December of 2022, which spans all the divisions within the department. And that team was able to identify key issues with this current system and develop solutions for the new solution requirements for the new system. And then in February 2023, we issued a request for information, or RFI DPP 1692103. This allowed us to do the in-depth market research on what potential solutions were out there. We received 18 applications and also sat through 16 demonstrations, at least an hour each, with questions about the various potential vendors. And in June 2023, there was a direct solicitation of statement of work, another iteration where it was a competitive solicitation, and it was under the NASPO Value Point Cloud Solutions. This is different from a traditional RFP process, but is where the state of Hawaii has already vetted these vendors, and it saves us time and is a faster option than the traditional RFP process. This was important because we wanted to get to this solution quickly, and we knew we were using FRF funds that could run out at any moment. And then in October 2023, we made the selection of Spiridion and Clarity based on 7 responses we received for the direct solicitation of statement of work. The Tiger team reviewed and ranked those 7, and in the end, I, as the director, made the final call. The top 2 vendors were very close, and I think part of the decision that was made was based on the ease of use for the customers. But very much it was a tight race. Another factor, I think, was that the second place vendor didn't have much experience in permitting systems, but Clarity and Spiridion, they have provided systems in many jurisdictions, including City of Los Angeles, Phoenix, Bakersfield, Athens, Georgia, Norfolk, Plano, and a few others. Additionally, the Tiger Tech team, as well as myself and DPP administration, interviewed some of those jurisdictions, as well as the CEOs of the finalists, to really understand what was the investment that would be made into this system and into DPP and the city's objectives. And then finally, the service level agreement that was made with Spiridion and Clarity further refined the objectives in order to best serve DPP and its objectives. And lastly, on February 12th, 2024 is when the project was kicked off with Spiridion and Clarity. But as you can see through this entire process, there was much due diligence every step of the way to ensure it was the right solution for DPP and the city. So what is the criteria that was used to select the new system? Within our standard of work and even in the request for information, there's a long bulleted list of different requirements, but I basically summarized them in 4 main buckets. One was speed and efficiency for automation, less manual processing, and faster inspections. Transparency and customer service for through a public portal, dashboards, and the ability to have online signatures. Third, integration and accuracy with our GIS mapping system, external data imports and payment systems, and future readiness or compatibility with mobile apps, scalable workflows, and compliance with new technology. What is the software development process with Spiridion and Clarity? So this is the process from February 12th, 2024, when the project began, even through today. So first was discovery and design, in which Spiridion and Clarity worked with our staff to establish workflows for each of the different processes that we handle. And then they came up with a project plan. Next, phase was the building of the actual design of the software, which included 17 development sprints. Each sprint was about 2 weeks, and to call it a sprint is pretty accurate. It's a very intensive part of development for staff as well as the vendor. And it also included outside stakeholders. The next phase was validating the build through user acceptance testing, or UAT, as well as training for internal and external stakeholders. And lastly, go live, which was the August 4th date. From August 4th and continuing through the next couple of months, or the current month, and a few more until we get it right, as Mayor had mentioned, we are in a hypercare phase, and that is in order to get the system to a stabilized state. And there's continued refinement of the system now through hypercare phase and beyond. Questions about POSSE, the old legacy system. So POSSE currently is a read-only. That means we're still able to look at data and information. It is an on-premise, so it's basically in our basement. And until we have all the data that moved over from POSSE to H&L Build, it will still be available to us. But once all that data shifts over, we will completely shut off POSSE. So this is a memorial that we found August 4th, around August 1st, the first week of launch of POSSE, that some staff had put up, and it has since grown. And you know, people really, most staff, that's all they've known since it's been there for 28 years. And this symbolizes the pain, the suffering and mourning that some staff and the public are experiencing due to the loss of POSSE, which has been a good friend for 28 years. But we must let go of POSSE and embrace H&L Build. This is probably the hardest part, which is organizational change management, or a major cultural shift. Sometimes I think when some people who are having a hard time, when they use H&L Build, they're still looking at it in reference to what POSSE did. But that's not how we move forward. H&L Build is a completely different system. We have to let go of POSSE and really try to understand our new system and how it works, because it really does have so many more benefits for staff and the public. So stakeholder involvement, again, it starts with staff. They know exactly what they need to do their jobs better, and they work daily with customers. Sorry, that's so small, but customers, so they understand the difficulties that customers have had in the technology that we've used, and they want to make it easier for customers. So definitely the consideration of what customers need is integrated and kind of communicated through our staff. Permitting task force, we had a permitting task force a few years ago, and although there weren't specific questions about the new system, we definitely heard a lot of the issues that we had with Posse and took that into account. And then the Tech Tiger team that I had mentioned, the internal team that helped to really push forward the entire, from idea all the way through procurement. And then our city partner agencies who have reviews that are integrated into our system and our processes, as well as state agencies. They were also consulted in part of this process. And there's also a steering committee throughout since February 12th, when we kicked off the project. Every month we had a steering committee meeting with the vendors, with administration, DPP administration, to really follow the project. They used a system, red, yellow, green, to give us ideas about how the project was going, and if there were, things we should be worried about, they'd be in the red, they'd be red lighted or yellow. But throughout, we kept a good eye on the project, and by the end, everything was green and ready to go. And then again, UAT testing involved staff as well as outside stakeholders to really test the system before we went live. What is the cost and timeline of the contract? So from kickoff to go live, that was an 18-month term, and we pretty much are within that schedule. And the cost is broken down here in this chart. On the left, the blue, this is the $5.4 million for the first 3 years, which includes the 18-month implementation. And that's all FRF funded. On the right, the pink, that represents what we will be coming to council during budget to ask for, and that just gives you an idea of what the maintenance and licensing costs will be for H&L build. There were questions about why August 4th was the launch date. August 4th is International Martini Day. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. But so these are the three major factors that decided August 4th. Again, the contract term, we were looking at an 18-month process in order to get to launch date. The key indicators that I mentioned through our steering committee, looking at all the parts of the system, and everything was pretty much green lighted. So we felt confident. And then we had completed training, internal and external, and user acceptance testing. So all of these things we're trying to juggle and understand, okay, is it make sense? Yes, August 4th seems to be the right date to move forward. But at the same time, this doesn't say that this is going to be a perfect system, everything will be running smooth. This is where when we say we're going to turn it on, we're going to go forward, but we anticipate there'll be bumps, there'll be adjustments that need to be made, and that's why you have hypercare after. That is the intention of the hypercare phase, to address all the issues that kind of shake out once you turn it on. So as with any major system launch, initial challenges are inevitable. What matters is how quickly and effectively they were and are addressed. So we responded immediately, identified root causes, and took corrective action. So this table gives you an idea of the three major issues we ran into. One was data migration errors. And so this is the reason this happened was in part because there's 28 years of data on the Posse side that don't have the same fields as those under H&L build. So moving that data over is a very complicated, complex transition. And so I think in the first week, some of the inspectors noticed, my timeline as far as, okay, am I in inspection? Is it closed out? Some of that information was jumbled up or missing, and that was certainly jarring when you usually know exactly where you are with the POSSE system. But that was addressed. I think we're like more than 90% there as far as the data mapping. But that was the solution was remapping, and so that's what Spiridion quickly jumped into. The second issue was account setup difficulties, and this is based on the fact that POSSE, there is no registration by the users, but in H&L Build, that's the basic part of H&L Build is to have a registration system so that you can have all of your projects, all of your information within H&L Build. But then there were existing projects that people had, and moving those projects under the correct registrant under H&L Build was part of the issues that we were having. So in response, we had to help customers with some individual account setups in certain circumstances. And then the third issue was new process questions. So this is just the change management, becoming more familiar and understanding a very complex and broad-reaching system. So training, we continue to train staff and providing information out there to the public. We have on our website FAQs, great videos, and other information to help people. For a project of this scale, some turbulence at go live was expected. However, we exercised due diligence at every step leading up to go live. We let the public know through various media, press releases, that the launch was coming and provided as much information as we thought we could. While no implementation can anticipate every scenario, our team acted decisively and effectively to keep the project moving forward. We remain committed to continuous improvement, accountability, and service to the public without allowing the pursuit of perfection to stall essential progress. I think there was, as Mayor mentioned, a little bit of fumbling in the beginning, but we recovered and we moved forward, and we would improve each step of the way. And so, yes, moving forward, as Mayor had mentioned, we continue to partner with Spiridion to make sure that we make all the fixes, we stabilize the system, and we do whatever we need to make the system a success. Progress since the launch. So this list is just a list of permits, and they're grouped by category. There's about 24. This doesn't include the other approvals that H&L Build handles, such as STR registrations or requests for investigations, et cetera. But this is the basic permit group. And a breakdown of some of what's been happening since the launch. For building permits, we've had this has gone up since print, but 1,539 building permits in the system with different phases. And then building multi-apps, those are multiple building permits in a single app, 301 for those. And then 77 grading permits, 16 minor SMAs, and 1,154 quick permits. And so, the total number of permits that have gone through H&L Build, which may have changed since then, probably gone up 3,716. And a total number of H&L Build account registrants, 3,495. So this has certainly, as expected, created some backlogs in certain areas. I think there were some comparisons made about permits in the system today or during launch, from launch to a month after versus a year ago, and I don't think that that's a great, that's not really an accurate comparison. The first couple of weeks, people were just registering into H&L Build, so they weren't putting permits in, they were simply getting into the system, so that probably reduced the amount of permits that were coming in. Additionally, the system itself is better about requiring information up front, so it wouldn't allow permits to come in if you haven't prepared your application properly. And this is a good thing, obviously, because it's keeping out not well-prepared permits that were coming through POSSE. So that may have also reduced the number of permits that were coming in. Oh, sorry, there's the registrants. Okay, and then implementation support. This has been a very intense time for staff who have received thousands of emails and phone calls with questions about H&L Build, and we have a breakdown, a really general breakdown about what the subject were of those emails. Technical support around 24%, account management, account setup 36%, and then overall process, how to use the system for a particular approval, about 40%. And then phone calls, 55% process, 45% account. So I really thank my staff for going through this process. It has been a lot, but again, with such a major change, a major project, it does take a lot of effort, a lot of manpower to get us through. So in summary, H&L Build is not just another software upgrade. It is a major system overhaul, transforming how we deliver services. I don't know if there's any other city agencies. I don't think there are any other city or state agencies currently undergoing such a major major system upgrade, but it is intensive. It was what we decided was needed, but certainly probably one of the most challenging things that DPP will go through. Secondly, implementation is deliberate, iterative, and ongoing. From years ago, this whole process began. Each phase builds on lessons learned, allowing us to adapt quickly and improve continuously. Number 3, change is hard. We recognize that for staff, for customers, and for our partners, but it's also necessary for modernization. We've invested in communication, training, and support to help make this major transition, and we will continue to do so. And lastly, most importantly, we are on track and fully committed to making H&L Build succeed. The department, our partners, and our stakeholders are working together to ensure the system delivers the efficiency, transparency, and service improvements our community expects and deserves. And with that, I'm done. Please follow us on Instagram. And thank you very much. I'm here for any questions.
All right, members, any questions? Councilmember Cordero. Oh, no. Any questions? Councilmember Cordero.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Hi, Director. Thank you very much for your presentation and the update. As you know, that the council members themselves aren't privy to every step that is happening. So an update like this is warranted, and we weren't in the task force or anything. So definitely appreciate the update and information. So first off, with the task force mentioned, I want to know how much of their feedback, along with all the other stakeholders, were utilized in choosing your vendors to then build H&L Build, and I guess the characteristics from those discussions, how it was incorporated.
That's a great question, and I touched on it a little bit, that there wasn't necessarily an official meeting or questions about, okay, what do you want to see in the new system? I think it was discussions about DPP in general, which was a few, from the very beginning, like 3 years ago, what are the issues that you're having with DPP? And there were issues directly related to the technology or how they wanted to see how the process could be improved. So I think that was the main indication. That's the part of the impetus for looking for and getting a new system.
Okay, thank you. And has the applications, the permit applications changed in any way since we are using two different systems now, or overhauling the system? Because you mentioned that the fields aren't the same, right, from POSSE and other permit applications before as they are being incorporated into H&L Build. So did the application have to change as well?
The actual application, yes. And when you go to H&L Build, the interface, the actual application process, it will walk you through. And so in that way, it's kind of weeding out and making sure you're providing the correct information. So it is different. It kind of step by step helps you to provide the appropriate information so that we can process it.
Okay, and so are there, so in a sense, there may be more fields that need to be incorporated as opposed to what is normally required of an applicant?
Yes, and I think that that's important because what might be, our backlogs, part of that is having applications that are incomplete or don't have certain forms or information, and then it kind of sits until we're able to really get all the information in there. So that's why H&L Build is great, because it identifies what should be given to us from the very beginning, and not later later in the process, and then it's going to take you time to get something from another agency. So that's what's good, but it is going to mean more work at the front, but it means for a smoother process down the road.
Okay, thank you. And how much time, or did you utilize any outside stakeholders to test H&L Build prior to launching on August 4?
So I think that part of the UAT testing did involve certainly some of the other agencies that are part of that process.
Oh, the agencies, not any stakeholders who may have participated as part of the permitting task force?
I don't think so. I think definitely the agencies. I would have to check whether there were outside of those agencies. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And as for the other agencies, they will have the same access to H&L Build, or just what they would have to approve?
They have I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that, but they definitely have access. They have their own, however it comes to them, and leaves goes back to the DPP process. But I'd have to get more specifics about that for you.
Oh, thank you. That would be awesome to know. And that ties into my question as to what was the deciding factor to launch on August 4 again? I got distracted by you mentioning the drink. So what was the deciding factor?
So just the contract itself, right, that it should be about 18 months for implementation. And then we had performed the UAT testing and done certain training that we thought was needed, as well as, what was the third one? The green light. So our steering committee with the vendor every month, we're checking the pulse on the different parts of the system, and which was pretty much green light throughout. There were some yellow lights at certain times, but at the end, everything was green light. That means everything was ready to go live.
Oh, okay. So was it 18 months from the selection of the vendors?
18 months, I think, was from the kickoff in February of 2024 to go live. I think that's the 18 months.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarification. And thank you, Director, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll take this time to ask a few questions. Building upon Councilmember Cordero's question about this 18-month contract kicking off February 12th, 2024, that would imply 18 months later is August 12th, 2025. Now, you've also mentioned that Spiridion is helping with hypercare and this phase. Is that also built in to the 18 months? Is this an additional thing?
I think it's additional, yeah, but within the same, okay, so I'm sorry, the contract term, the final, that would probably include the hypercare phase and the 18-month like implementation to go live.
How long do we have, how much longer do we have in this contract with Spiridion?
So the hypercare phase, I think this is actually the last week, but they're going to extend until all of the, bugs, everything is worked out. And then once that ends, we move on to a maintenance contract. So that is in the works, but we certainly want to make sure everything is done in the hypercare phase to stabilize the system.
And so that's not reflected in the contract on the 8th slide, that additional phase beyond next week.
Correct. I would have to make sure, but I think I'd have to make sure on that. Yeah.
I guess my question is how much more is this going to cost beyond what's reflected on slide 8, the 2.6 million to Spiridion?
Oh, yeah. Oh, so, okay, sorry. So the extension of time on the hypercare phase, we believe that is zero cost. Because of the some of the things that needed to be changed, that shouldn't be more additional. But then the maintenance contract, that is a separate.
So Spiridion's going to give us this additional customer service out of the goodness of their heart?
Well, because of some of the issues I think that we need to work out in order to get to a stabilized system.
So this, I guess, leads to a question that kind of came up here. So some of these other things, you mentioned there are key indicators, all green lights, but now we're discovering that there are things that should have been taken care of in this hyperphase. We wouldn't need additional hypercare if these things were addressed. And this is what I'm getting to. I know that the mayor objected to my comments in Hawaii News Now, but exactly what I said was, were there things that were missed in terms of working with a vendor? And it seems like there were some of these things. So that's what I'm trying to get at.
No, that's a fair question.
Thank you for acknowledging that that's a fair question.
Well, I think so this type of system, it is so complex, and we do everything that we can with the vendor to make sure that the system is ready. And whether it's, looking at, just the very specifics, making sure we're doing enough testing, that we're training. There's only so much you can do before you turn it on, and then you see some of the issues. And I think that's natural for such a large, complicated system. But we're still in that phase. Like, we're not saying August 4th, it's going to be perfect, everything's going to be running smoothly. We anticipated that there was going to have to be some adjustments, and that's just the nature of the beast kind of thing.
And I understand that these things are complex. In terms of POSSE, so we saw the RIP POSSE slide. Are we still going to be paying for POSSE? And you mentioned that there's still data that needs to be remapped and migrated over. That comes from POSSE somewhere. So can you tell us about POSSE moving forward? Or do we have the ghost of POSSE till Halloween? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's on premise. We're not paying for anything additional now or moving forward. But it's ours. The data is ours. And as we move it over, that's part of what Spiridion is doing. That doesn't involve Computronics, who was the vendor for POSSE.
And so in terms of remapping, is this covered under the hypercare phase, or is this something Spiridion's doing, or are we doing the remapping internally? Is DIT doing this?
The remapping, so that's just part of the overall implementation with Clarity Spiridion.
But I thought that ends next week.
No, so that's been extended.
Okay, so that's part of the extended contract.
Yeah.
I see Brian nodding.
What's that? I'm
I
sorry.
see Brian nodding, so. Is that part of the extended contract?
So I think we've moved well, I think there's phases of moving the data over. The actual bugs or issues with the data mapping, that has been like 90% or so solved. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then in terms of remapping, if there were data migration errors as noted on on one of the slides, how do we verify after the fact that the data is being migrated correctly? You mentioned it was jumbled, which is the whole thing. How do we make sure that it's correct? Because people are depending on that data to be migrated over correctly so they can move forward with their permits.
Right. So part of that is staff and customers letting us know if it still doesn't make sense. Additionally, so Kira Chuchom, right, our data expert, she's also continuing to work with Spiridian just to make sure, you know, what happened, you know, was the fix complete, you know, are there additional things that we should look at? But so yeah, we're happy to have Kira there to kind of lend her expertise, but it is just a matter of, okay, it's not there, they make a fix, and it looks like it's working out. I think we rely heavily on our staff and then even customers letting us know, and we quickly try to address that.
And then one more question about data, and then I'll turn it back over to the members. Within the data that's being migrated, are the activities within the system traceable? In that, as this data is being migrated over, do we have a log of, can somebody just go in and change data and simply say something's approved in the process of migration? This has always been, you know, the suspicion, right, that somebody has a friend and they just change things on the permit.
That's a good question. I mean, that was one of the major requirements of the system, that it provides a footprinted record so that we are sure, you know, what's going on. Do people have unlimited access or authority to do things? That's something we don't want. So that is part of the system, and that will continue to be refined so that requirement is fully executed.
Okay, members. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Thank you, Director, again. I have a question relating to, I know that I was looking at the memorial that your staff has, and I know that because it is a major system overhaul, I'm sure that is taking a lot more time that, of course, everyone feels like they wish wasn't as necessary, but I was just wondering, is it taking staff away, is training taking staff away from the other tasks that they also have to do, and how is that being managed?
Yes, throughout the whole process, we have asked staff to be part of the UAT testing, to help actually design the process flows. So it has been, that's a major ask of our staff, and they have done that all the way from beginning. The Tech Tiger team, these are volunteers. This is staff doing the work in order to fully configure and build and test and implement the system. So this was all internal with the vendor, and I just, you know, I thank the staff for really stepping up.
Okay, and so when you ask the staff, does that mean it's the same staff that are currently working, that has worked with Posse, or are there other staff that has to get accustomed to H&L Build as well?
Yeah, everyone.
Oh, everyone. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, got it.
And you know, you bring up kind of a good point, is that I mean, DPP faces all kind of major issues, right? We're trying to do what the council, what the public, what the administration wants us to do to fix DPP. But this project, it touches every single staff person. And so you can really feel it. Like, this is a very intense process. So I understand, like, it is very difficult, but it's such a major project that will bring so many benefits when it's completed. But it really is, we can feel that we're asking a lot of staff, but they certainly have done a great job. I feel that they have done so much just to get this system and to transition through it. And we're not there yet, but we're gonna get through it.
Okay. Oh, Thank you. And my next question, I know I was asking about fields and the changes in the application, but of course, a part of that is addressing some of the challenges that you mentioned on the challenges slide, which is looking at it says here the issue is data migration errors, and the action is to remap, and remap, that's like dealing with the fields, right? And so, do you have a timeline again for all of that? And is there a cost to correcting those errors?
Yeah, so that is definitely has been happening since the go live. Once we've seen that data was not in the right place, or they began to do the remapping. So we're almost 90% done with that, and that is part of the hypercare phase from the go live. And we continue. I think we're almost complete on that, but we'll continue to work on that until it's everything is in its right place.
Okay, so almost complete, but no timeline or set timeline for the correction of all the errors then, or remapping, excuse me.
I mean, so the hypercare phase was to be by contract through this week, but it is extended. I think we're working on, there's like contract amendments for that extension, but it looks like it's around a month or so.
Okay. And what was this process, sorry, jumping to maybe some of the first slides from validating, was validating just the system itself, or am I incorrect of like validating the, I guess, fields? I don't know.
So validating would be, so the staff the process would be built within the system, say for, I don't know, grading permits.
Oh, okay.
Right. So in the first phase, they design it with staff, and then they build it out, and then validating it is going through and testing. There are like hundreds of UAT tests that staff went through, and so they validate: is it working? Is it processing through? Basically, making sure that that process was correct.
Okay, so that validating process was not part of the migration errors validation process.
No, yeah,
Okay.
this is before we went live, so that they could.
Okay.
And there was, there's like a sandbox where they could do testing in the sandbox versus at some point before the go live, the actual data, some of it had moved over, so there was more testing in that environment. There's just a lot of different types of testing to make sure that things were going well. But as I said, you can't always get every single thing right until you turn it on, and then you can do some more refinement and fixes.
So after, thank you, Director. So after remapping occurs, how are we able to ensure that the remapped information and data are all correct?
So part of that is just having staff let us know, because they're the ones that usually identify if there's an issue with the data. And then even customers, they let us know if there's some missing or misplaced information on their end. So that's part of it. And then again, we're looking at it from a more systematic view with Spiridion and even with Kira, our data specialist, to see what happened, what was the fix good enough, and do we need to do anything else to ensure all the data is moved over properly.
Okay, thank you. And I was wondering, through the remapping, with the current permits that have then been remapped and will then have to be looked at by certain staff or individual staff, do you know how much time that will add in responding to a permit application?
Oh, you mean like how much time they're taking to on the fix versus like doing their work?
I guess moving the applications or the permits in the process, how much time that will add?
I don't think it, so The actual like say for permitting, I mean it's separate. I think they can once say there's an issue, right, with the data, staff will let the tech people know. The tech people make the fix, and then they have them check again.
Okay.
So that's separate from, you know,
Got
I don't
it.
think it that time certainly affects their ability to do their normal reviews, but it's separate, and we try to quickly identify, fix, so that they can go back to their normal work.
Okay, thank you, Director.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the discussion and, of course, the presentation and the thoroughness. I think it's been pretty complete, so grateful for that. I just wanted to kind of touch base on the conversation we've been having, around public notice for discretionary permits. And so I think really I understand there's a lot to work through already, but just as we think about how we can incorporate that into the system and how data is pulled and how it's presented, I was just curious if that's been fleshed out at least a little bit, or you have ideas about how this could be utilized.
Yeah, definitely. We've been talking to our tech team on that, and the system can provide reports based on, and we can categorize it by district, council district, and we can do maybe every 2 weeks, we'll update that report and give it to council so that they know what are the newest, any kind of discretionary permit within your district. So that's definitely something that we're working on, and we'll try to get that available as soon as possible.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful. And then appreciate those reports. I mean, is that something that someone could go into the system, like create a tab where a member of the public could push a button to generate the list too, or is that?
I think, not that I'm aware of, but I think that there is capability. There is a search bar that you
Yeah.
can search a lot of information in H&L Build, so that might be a start. But we can go back and see if that's something as a registered user, if you can create some of those reports from the outside.
Appreciate that. And I only bring it up because I think the challenge was going and looking at a project by, say, project number, TMK, whatnot, doesn't necessarily touch on the notice aspect that folks are wanting when they're saying, hey, we don't always know
Right.
when projects are going to pop up. But having that notice was something the community was just inquiring about. So appreciate that.
Yeah, no, we're happy that the system can accommodate that. I think that's important, and then it should be easy for the public to understand what's happening.
Mahalo. And yeah, really thank you. These are exciting times for DPP and the community. And so I think we're all looking forward to working through all the, all the issues that come up from time to time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
Members, other questions or comments?
I just was gonna, you had mentioned the contract, the 18 months, and so I just wanted to share with you. At one point, kind of middle, maybe a little earlier, the intention was to have a go live, like halfway through, to actually implement and start running it, and that was the original intention. And then later, the second half, but at that point, that decision point. We decided to just do everything and to have one go live, because then like inspectors would be working out of 2 systems simultaneously, and that would be too much for our staff. So what was originally like 18 months, it did shrink a little because we said we're just going to do one go live. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I have a few more questions for now. I think that there's more that we can probably get in writing, including copies of the contracts with Speridian and the invoices, which I think my office might have asked for a couple weeks ago.
I think we sent it over, but
Okay.
if you'd like us to send it to the council
I think that would be
committee.
helpful.
Okay, sure.
I noticed one thing in the slides that's not here is the NOV and NOOs. How has the system been addressing the inspection side? You just mentioned the inspectors being out there potentially with 2 systems. How has that been going? How many NOVs have been issued under the new system versus ones that got started in Posse and migrated over?
We'd have to run that for you. We can get you that information, though. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess my last question for the time being is, I actually have two questions, so we'll start with one. Going back to the process with Speridian and Clarity, there were 17 development sprints. During this time, could you paint a picture of what it looked like between DPP and Speridian? Were there employees from Speridian embedded in DPP? Was it the same staff the entire time? Were we talking with a single account manager, or was it just sort of multiple random people? And then right now, are there any Speridian staff members embedded within DPP working on this?
So that's a good question. So throughout for the sprints and all of that, we had I think he's like a business process manager from Speridian. I don't recall his title, but he was kind of he's the in between DPP processes and the technology. So he was actually here in Honolulu for several months, and we really liked him. He really understood everything that we did because he has to be able to let the tech guys know how is this going to work. And then we also had obviously offshore the Speridian people, the tech people. They're constantly working. I believe it's the same members, and so at this point we still have all the technology offshore. And then in the first week of go live, some of the tech people, as well as that business process flow person, they were here for at least a week. And then last week, we had some more Speridian people come back. We had the replacement of that one person. He actually left. He was replaced. And so we had 4 different staff from Speridian here for last week, and then this week to continue in the hypercare phase. Yeah.
It seems strange that person who you'd been working with for a long time, I think you mentioned that he left right at launch time. Is that typical? It seems strange.
I don't know if it's typical, but I do know it was a loss in a way. And I mean, we really liked him. I think he liked us. But yeah, I think it does affect. It's hard for the next person to fill his shoes and ramp up all the knowledge that he had. So I'm not going to say it hasn't affected us, but it has. And so that's another challenge. It's things that we can't see or predict, but we just make the best of it. So we're happy that Speridian has brought on more people to fill those shoes as quickly as possible, but we just keep going forward.
Can we get him back? I mean, you mentioned he was with us for months during the build-out process. It's again, it just seems strange when we're at this launch to have a whole new team that doesn't know the ins and outs, trying to fix the ins and outs.
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely working with the new people, and they're trying to catch up as fast as they can. It's just, again, it's one of those things that just happened. At DPP, we get everything thrown at us, and it would have been smoother if that person were still around.
And Director, I do recognize that you get a lot thrown at you, and I throw a lot at you, but it's because I also want this to succeed, and the administration to succeed in this. And I think that's why we're checking in and making sure that everything is being refined and moving forward. I guess my last question is to that point of having accountability and making sure that things are on track. We have the data portrait here, progress since launch, the thousands of permits in here. And I think it was mentioned earlier that it's not quite an apples to apples comparison between August of 2024 versus August of this year. What of these metrics here, what should we be looking at to assess truly how the system is doing?
I mean, just the fact that we have permits, all these different permits in the process, various stages, but certainly some that are closed out, they're moving through the system. So it is working. The system is working, and I think the more we stick with it, we train, we do all this, it'll be even more. And like I said, a lot of things in the beginning probably have affected the number of permits coming in and our ability to process them. But yeah.
I think one of the key measures that we've always had whether in the old system or now in the new system, is the backlog, right? The number of permits that come in, some of which are incomplete, and that's why we have the pre-check and all of that. But of those that get through the gate, how many are coming out? And there should be more coming out than coming through that gate of pre-check. How are we doing in that in that scenario, that just that bucket of those that made it through the pre-check gate and are now out the door?
I don't have those specific numbers. I would say, though, honestly, because when we went live, it was a time of adjustment. So that definitely affected it. So that's why it's going to be less than a year ago. So we're part of what, as we move forward, it is just getting everyone on track, back on track, right? So we'll try to get those numbers so that we can follow it and see how we improve. But this is where we're at. The hyperphase has been intense, and we know that it has slowed us down. We know there's backlogs, so we're also at the same time working with staff pre-screen, which is pretty high. That's very high. Like, what are we going to do? Like, people are working overtime. We're shifting staff over different places. We understand, but we also anticipated this to some extent. Yeah.
Okay, members, other questions? Okay. Right now, why don't we go to testimony? We have 3 registered testifiers, all of whom are here. So we're going to go in order of registration. We have Greg Masakian, Raquel Achiu, and then Angela Melody Young. And we'll start with Mr. Masakian. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you, Chair. Just got something prepared, so let me just pull it up. Aloha, Chair and council members. My name is Greg Masakian, and I am testifying as an individual today. I currently serve on my condo association's board of directors and other boards in the state. I have previously brought to the attention of DPP Director Apuna and others at DPP, the City Council, and the Mayor's Office that there is an ongoing roof project at my condominium association where serious fraud and improper work is involved. Without permit, the project was allowed to move forward by DPP. The roof overlay called Duradeck is not intended to go over a roof like ours, and I have this in writing from the manufacturer. The project manager has a criminal background and currently has a bench warrant for his arrest. The previous deputy director of DPP had concerns with the DPP inspector assigned to our building. I have documented evidence of the fraud and concerns with pay-to-play and kickbacks. I'm asking for assistance from Council Chair Waters, this committee, and the mayor, who I know is there today, to help me and the many residents at my condominium association who are adversely impacted by this. Mahalo.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Okay, next is Raquel Achiu, followed by Angela Melody Young. Oh, aloha, you're on mute, and if you could unmute and we'll get started. There we go.
Can you hear me? Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Mahalo, Chair. Aloha, committee members. I just wanted to provide comment. I did submit in writing as well, and I stand by that. But just to add, I just want to offer a little support to Director Apuna and her team. It's very easy for the public and everyone else to, come in barrels loaded and shoot the daggers, right? But I believe it's important to address the things that have been going right, because no other director has undertaken or taken this task ever. And it's a huge one. And we're talking about decades of issues that are being addressed. So decades worth of issues can't be solved overnight. And it's unreasonable to think that it's going to come out smoothly right out of the gate. I respect that. I still have frustrations, yes, 100%. I don't get things as fast as I want them. But a lot of times I've come to realize in all the work of doing with my community that when I go to bat for these guys, I end up coming back to the community, licking my wounds, because a lot of the delays and issues are due to these planners, developers, landowners who submit inaccurate applications. So I think there's accountability around the table. And I still have great faith and appreciation for Director Apuna and her team and the work that they do to move us forward. And I know it's a daunting task. And I just want to share my aloha and my appreciation for the work that they are consistently doing and the commitment they've made. So I appreciate the opportunity here, Chair, and have a great day. Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you. All right, last testifier that we have registered, Angela Melody Young.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. Just have some positive reviews about DPP in light of all the negativity being publicized. I'm really happy also my generation is so understanding and easy to work with in the development of technology and building processes because the transition and the shift from paper maps to technology is incredible. I think what's needed now as the discussions on the floor drag on about DPP. It's not just like to post more on Instagram, but also for communities to get involved in the building process. The prior generation did not have a good understanding and knowledge about technology, affordable housing, and developing and transient-oriented development neighborhoods. So what we can do in our millennial and Gen Z generation to improve technology, to use our social media platforms to publicize positive messages about continued support for the transit corridor and surrounding communities is so necessary to push forward these agendas to build a resilient city. The prior generation had no understanding or knowledge about fighting to connect communities of poverty with jobs, work, and institutions of healthcare access and education to improve the quality of life for all citizens. So, good job, DPP. DPP is cracking down on illegal Airbnbs. You're obviously hiring incredible engineers to work on infrastructure and development for building critical services and to develop TOD plans and affordable housing. So I'm just really happy to be on this side of history. And things don't go well all the time, with developing expedited processes to improve accessibility and to build. Yeah, because it's like rich people, they don't like poor people things, and then like Hawaiians trying to fight the Chinese.
Okay.
So
thank you, Angela. Okay. Well, members, I guess we're in discussion. Any discussion here? Well, I want to thank the mayor for embarking on this project, and thank Dawn and Brian for being here and presenting about this new system. We had two supporters here in the testimony of folks from the public who recognize the difficulties, and I do too, and that's why we're having this hearing, this check-in. I think for many years we had a very sick patient, so to speak, and a system that was 25 plus years old and needed some tough medicine and needed maybe the little shock paddles to get things restarted and kicked off. And that doesn't mean, as has been mentioned, that everything's going to go smoothly. But it's our job, here at the council to make sure that we are indeed on the right track, that there's data to back that up, and to the extent that there are problems, that they do get fixed and are being fixed. And we're going to keep on top of that over the next several months to make sure that we are indeed on track here. But I appreciate you coming in and presenting. I know it's a difficult task to do with all the other things you're working on. So I really do genuinely want to thank you for coming here and presenting on this very important topic for our community. Councilmember Wire.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to echo that, and then also mahalo you, because I think being able to have this conversation as in-depth as we've been able to really helps answer questions, because otherwise the community is left to guess, make assumptions, make critiques. And so I think all around we're continuing the collaboration that makes the city work so well. And so appreciate you facilitating this conversation and the advocacy. And again, as I said, mahalo to the department for the great work they're doing. So thank you.
All right, members, any other comment? Clerks, is there anyone else waiting to testify, or anyone here in the chamber?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, that wraps up our agenda item for today. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. It's 12:25. Thank you.